In the two world wars, more than 3.5 million Africans and 6.5 million Asians, especially Indians, were used in fighting those wars, which were not their wars. Yet, no thought was given to how they would participate in international decision-making. Was the assumption that we would never be free? If that was the assumption, then the assumers were wrong. By both peaceful and violent methods, the countries of Asia and Africa are now free. Even the indigenous peoples of the Americas, Australia, New Zealand, that survived extermination are also beginning to assert themselves, as we have seen in countries like Bolivia, etc. It is therefore a circus to waste time year after year debating the obvious. We demand our right of having permanent seats, not seasonal ones allotted to us by the President and fair system on the UN Security Council. Every reasonable man, as the lawyers say, the lawyers have a good word. They say a reasonable man should understand this, should see this. Every reasonable man, as the lawyers always say, I do not want to bother myself talking of fair-minded man, should see that the 1.4 billion Africans that will be 2.5 billion in the next 29 years, and the billions of Asians, the former colonized peoples, cannot be kept out of the UN Security Council on terms similar to the present 5, USA, China, Russia, Britain, France, that monopolize that body now. There are only a few factors that are delaying the process. Two of them are on our side, the Africans, that have decided to maintain weakness in Africa, even after the colonization of our continent, that started with the independence of the Sudan in 1955. Here in Uganda, we have been battling those internal weaknesses by relying on 4 principles. Principle number 1, patriotism. Down with sectarianism of religion and tribe, and loving Uganda. That's one of the big battles we have been fighting here. Some people trying to promote sectarianism of religion, of tribe, and with the patriots denouncing that treason and insisting on the unity of our people. Pan-Africanism, i.e. loving East Africa, loving Africa, and working for their integration. Socio-economic transformation. Africa cannot remain a pre-industrial society, a society before modern times, and democracy. With these 4 principles, patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy, we have been able to create a chapter of some capacity. We have some capacity here. We don't need the United Nations to come and defend us. We can defend ourselves. Similar chapters exist and have existed in Africa since independence. That is how, for instance, countries like Tanzania, under Mwalimu Nyerere, Zambia, under Mzee Kaunda, Botswana, under Mzee Seretse Khama. The word Mzee means the elder. Those who don't know Swahili, Mzee means the elder. Algeria, under Houari Boumediene, Egypt, under Gamal Abdel Nasser, and Guinea-Conakry under Sékou Touré were able to support the anti-colonial armed struggle that defeated Portuguese colonialism in Mozambique, Angola, Guinea-Bissau, and Sao Tome, defeat the Ian Smith regime in Zimbabwe, what was called Rhodesia, defeat the racists in Namibia, and defeat the racists in South Africa, working with the African liberation movements of those countries. This shows that once the Africans get together, not all of them even, some of them, there's nothing that we cannot solve. Because this is an example. Who defeated the Portuguese colonialists in Africa? It was the African countries supporting the freedom fighters, supported by some few friends in the world. But we did it. Our elders actually did it. And at that time, they had much less capacity than what we have now. This means that the potential is there if we act right and together. The problem of Idi Amin and such other problems were similarly solved by the African actors. Idi Amin was a problem. Who solved the problem of Idi Amin? When you see the people of Uganda coming up now, standing, the economy growing, population growing. Population of Uganda was 10 million that time. It's now 43 million. Many of them, since the time of the NRM, our party, our movement, when we came into power, because children were vaccinated, that's how the population exploded. But who solved the problem of Idi Amin? It was not external people, it was our people. Ugandans plus a few brothers, not even many, a few. Tanzania, Zambia. That time we had Mozambique had come, Angola, and we solved that problem and other problems which I don't want to go into. The present chaos in some African countries can be solved if the different chapters are able to act together. When you hear the chaos which is in Africa now, country by country, this can be solved. There's nothing that we cannot solve. I'm telling you what I know, because I have been involved for the last 60 years. So the main problem is lack of coordination, lack of cohesion. This is what I'm talking about. Those fellows are playing around with us because we are not cohesive. That's why we are begging, as if we are begging for somebody has stolen my cows, and then I go to beg him, please give me back my cows. I take the cows. I don't beg you. But if you are weak, you beg. Like now we are begging, please. The present chaos in some African countries can be solved if the different chapters are able to act together. There is no adversary that we cannot defeat on the African continent if we act together. I can tell you this. Because in 1963, when our leaders first met in Addis Ababa, at that time I was in the secondary school, the ones who met in Addis Ababa were only 36 countries which had got independence. They are the ones who founded the OAU. That means there was another almost 20 countries of Africa which were not yet free. And in that conference, I remember very well, you know, the problem is that you people, what you call history, me, I call current affairs, because I was there. So in that conference, the African leaders passed a resolution saying that all the African countries must be free, peacefully. And if anybody does not give freedom peacefully, we shall throw him out by war, the armed struggle. Oh, people were laughing at, these are Africans just talking. But our leaders formed a committee of 9. It was called the Committee of 9, just like this one. The Committee of 9 African countries who are members of the Liberation Committee, which was headquartered in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And that one was to coordinate support for the liberation movements in the countries which were occupied by the foreigners. This was 1963. And people were laughing at Africa, what can they do? But by 1974, the African armies in Mozambique, in Angola, in Guinea-Bissau had defeated the Portuguese imperialists. Defeated by war, not talking in the microphones, no. Not only had they defeated the Portuguese army in Africa, but they had also liberated Portugal itself. Portuguese got freedom because of the Africans. Then Ian Smith, 1980, down. Ian Smith had said he would be here for 1,000 years. 1994, the rest, Namibia, 1990. So there's nothing that we cannot do. That's where the problem is. By strengthening ourselves here in Africa, the outsiders will more easily accept not to interfere with our rights. We must be in that Security Council to ensure that it is not used negatively against Africa, and that it is instead used positively for Africa and the rest of the world. When has the UN system been misused to commit aggression against Africa? When? What are the examples where the UN Security Council was misused to the detriment of Africa? I can straight away quote 2 cases. The murder of Patrice Lumumba in 1961 and the attack on Libya recently. How much chaos have these 2 mistakes caused in Africa? If you sit down and you think how much chaos has been caused by these 2 actions, the killing of Patrice Lumumba, 1961, and the attack on Libya recently. All this chaos you are talking about in the Sahel is linked to the problem of Libya. The fellows who are dying in the ocean, in the Mediterranean, going to Europe. Many of them were working in Libya. Libya was, although I had problems with Gaddafi, I had to fight Gaddafi 2 times. But he had also his positive points. And many Africans were working in Libya. They were not going to Europe. Now, that little portion of strength has been destabilized, and these Africans are going in the waters. Who is answerable for these two mistakes? When you talk of accountability, who is accountable for all this suffering that has been caused by these mistakes? The attack on Libya, for instance, is definitely behind the chaos in Mali, Niger, Chad, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, etc. Congo has been in successive problems in the last 60 years. Congo, Kinshasa, DRC. The membership of African countries on a permanent basis would stop these mistakes. How and who should be the members of this body? It is already known that Africa should have 2 members of the Security Council on a permanent basis and another 2 in the non-permanent category. Elected, maybe, I'm having an idea, may be elected every 4 years on a rotational regional basis. These are just my ideas. I don't know whether they were captured in Ezorini, but these are all my ideas. This would mean that for 4 years, we would have 1 country for North Africa and one country from West Africa. Then for the next 4 years cycle, we would have 1 country from Central Africa and 1 country from Southern Africa. Then the next 4 years cycle would have a country from Eastern Africa and another turn for a different country from North Africa. These countries would go to the Security Council as our delegates. They go there to represent our views, not to just bring their own views. The views of the African Union, democratically agreed. They should only take the positions given to them by the African Union, not their own individual positions. If we had such arrangements, mistakes like what happened in Libya would not have happened. Because I remember on the issue of Libya, I was a member of the Committee of 5. I hear a rumor that I'm still a member, although it never meets. There was a Committee of 5 on Libya. I think chaired by Jacob Zuma, or either Jacob Zuma or Sassou Nguesso. We were members of that committee to bring peace in Libya, and we were going to do it. And actually, at that time, I didn't go, but I sent a representative, and the African leaders were in the aircraft going from, I think, Mauritania to Libya, in the air. When they were told, go back, Libya is being attacked. Can you imagine? African leaders, former colonials are attacking an African country against the wish of the African Union. This is a very big mistake for this generation to accept. Very big mistake. Now you see the chaos which came from that. So who is accountable for these crimes? These are crimes against humanity, which they keep talking about. But if we had been in the Security Council, actually some of the African countries were there, but they took their own position, which was not correct. Our collective, we had met in Addis, we had said, keep out of Libya, we shall settle it. But some of the people did not listen. But if we had been there with the orders of the African Union, that one would not have happened. Or, if the majority of the African unions had supported intervention, then the attack would have happened with our consent. Now, there is another confusion, trying to use the side of the economy to decide who should be in the Security Council, who should represent Africa. They come and take measurements. Who is fat now? They bring a tape measure to see who is fat now, who is the fattest. But the one who is fat now may be small tomorrow. And the one who is small may be fat tomorrow. This confusion must stop. And selfishness, we're wasting our time. Germany's economy is now bigger than either the economy of UK or France. So what do we do now? We should remove France and UK from Security Council and put Germany, because Germany has got a big economy now. What logic is this? And what are you looking for? All these African countries, these economies are, that's why we call them underdeveloped. They have big potential. This size you see, economy, Uganda, this now, is not the size of, it is like a young child. When you say a young child, you say this is the size of the child. This is a young child. He will grow and become a giant. So that should not be waste our time. Finally, it is time to bring to the high table the defeated belligerents of the Second World War, Germany and Japan. You know, those fellows are out. Germany, because this UN system is for those who won the second inter-imperialist war, but supported by Russia. Russia was a big player. Although it was not among the club, but it actually did the biggest fighting against Hitler for their own reasons. So these are the ones who are in that Security Council. The defeated fellows are out. Germany, Japan, and Italy. Italy, of course, had also been part of that. But in my opinion, this should now come. Why? We want reconciliation and forget past mistakes. Why do you continue to punish a student of imperialism and aggression when you have never punished the teacher, the actual imperialist countries, as per 1900? Because the imperialist countries who colonized us, the position of Germany and Japan was a question. Because since the First World War and the Second World War were started by the new imperialist powers. When Germany was unified in 1871, became one country. Germans were not one country. There were 39 kingdoms actually, scattered. Prussia, Bavaria, Saxony. Then they had a pan-German movement to unite Germany, and then eventually they got united in 1871. So they became strong because they were united. Now the mistake they made was to compete. Then Italy was united in 1860. But by that time, the other imperialist countries Britain, France, Portugal, Spain had already grabbed different parts of the world. India, South America, the United States itself. So these new imperialists, they came, this is unfair. You have got more slaves than me. What should I do? I also need slaves. This is how the war started. The First World War. Actually, the old imperialists tried to pacify Germany. So they called a conference in Berlin, 1884, 1885. They were called, Bismarck actually is the one who called it. You come. I also need a share of the colonial possessions. So they say, please, Germany, don't fight. Let's give you something. They gave Germany Tanganyika, Rwanda, Burundi, Namibia, Togo, I think. Say, please, you take this, don't fight. And Bismarck seemed to have kept quiet. But other groups in Germany said, no. What do you mean? You give us Tanganyika and Rwanda. When you have got the whole of India, we also need more. That's how the First World War started. And then the second one. So the Germans were trying to copy the example of Britain and France and Portugal and Belgium and so you cannot punish the student and you forget about the teacher when you have not punished the teacher. Because the question was, why should UK, France, Portugal, Belgium, etc. have colonies and we do not have, yet we are now powerful countries? This was the argument. But the other weakness was ourselves. This one you should not forget. The other weakness, it was also the shallowness and the refusal of our chiefs to change that created the internal weaknesses that lured the wicked. You should not forget that. Like, for instance, here in East Africa, this is why I will never forgive our chiefs here, our traditional leaders. You remember Vasco da Gama went around Cape Town in 1498 and landed on Christmas Day in now what is now called Natal in South Africa. And he continued from there. He came and bombarded Mombasa and went to India. This is 1498. So our wonderful chiefs here in the interior of East Africa knew that a new powerful group of people are coming. You wonder why they could not get together and prepare to defend us. Just full of themselves, putting on monkey skins, looking like clowns, saying they are powerful like lions when they are nothing. So you can imagine Vasco da Gama passes by our coast 1498. The first white man to come, for us we had never seen a white man. The first non-black person to come here was an Arab called Ibrahim in 1841. We had never seen a non-black person. So when the Ugandans saw it, they said he had no skin. They thought that he was just, because they knew that people with skins must be black. The first white man to come here is 1862. Huntington Peak. This is 364 years